Welcome back to the Called and the Challenged episode 9. Today's episode is for every believer who feels stuck, for every leader who's tempted to quit, and for every creative who's thinking maybe it's time to move on. Here's your reminder. Sometimes the breakthrough you're praying for doesn't come from leaving. It comes from staying. The title of this episode is The Power of Staying Planted. In a culture that glorifies hustle, reinvention, and overnight success, God still honors those who stay rooted. So let's get to it. Point number 1. Fruit comes from roots. Psalm 1:3 says, "They are like trees planted by streams of water, which yield fruit in season. Whatever they do prospers." Notice, not wandering trees, not transplanted every season, planted, rooted, stable, consistent. Trees don't grow fruit by moving every few months. They grow because their roots grow deep. Too many leaders chasing quick fruit, but skipping the root process. Switching churches every 6 months, changing jobs every time it gets hard, quitting projects before they develop. But hear me out on this. Uprooting too soon can delay your harvest. Can you think of Joshua when he was walking around the walls of Jericho? If he would have just stopped 1 or even 2 days early, what that would have caused the future to look like? It would have been horrible. Point number 2. Stability produces strength. Staying planted doesn't always feel exciting, but it builds endurance. Think of Joseph in prison, Moses in the desert, and David waiting for the throne. These were not seasons of rapid growth, but they were seasons of deep formation. Sometimes God is building something in you before he builds something through you. And if you run from discomfort, you'll also run from your development, because roots aren't formed in excitement. They're formed in the ordinary, the showing up, the repetition, the faithfulness when nobody's clapping. Listen, God uses consistency to create capacity. Point number 3. Stop romanticizing the exit. There's this lie that often is said, if I just go somewhere new, things will finally work. I've had that thought, and I'm sure some of you have had that thought. And yes, sometimes God does call us to move, but many times we're just running from hard work, from correction, or from being unseen. But here's the problem. If you leave before you're released, you'll end up repeating the same cycle somewhere else. I'll often tell people the way you left your last church is the way you're going to leave your next church. Why? Because we're not solving the problem that lies within us and why we're leaving in the first place. You see, leaving a church, a job, or a team doesn't solve internal frustration. It often multiplies it. And we need to be reminded of that. And before you uproot, ask yourself, is God really calling me to move? Or am I just uncomfortable? Am I trying to leave a place or avoid a process? Don't romanticize the next season so much that you miss the power of the one you're in right now. And can I be vulnerable with you? I've had seasons where I felt stagnant. The church felt like it wasn't growing. God was speaking to me in a different way. The fruit wasn't obvious. I was preaching, leading, serving, and doing a lot of different things in ministry, but it felt dry. And I thought maybe I missed it. Maybe I need to move on. But the Holy Spirit said, Jacob, it's not time to go. It's time to grow. And in that moment was when I realized God wasn't growing us as a body numerically. He was growing us deeper in our roots spiritually. Every single individual in that place. That's why it's important for us to stay grounded in the Word and where He calls us to go, and allowing God to grow us and not running from discomfort. And the Word changed everything. God didn't remove me, He refined me. And on the other side of that season came some of the strongest roots I've ever had. Listen, family, don't leave your garden just because it hasn't bloomed yet. Stay focused on Him, His Word, and where He has called you to go. And maybe this episode is your confirmation to stay planted, to stay in that marriage God is healing, stay in that church God called you to serve, stay in that position that feels mundane, because fruit is still coming. Galatians 6:9 says, do not grow weary in well-doing, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. Listen, we often forget that last part. If you do not give up, we just want to see the harvest, but we have to remind it to never give in and never give up. Roots take time. Depth takes endurance, but God is doing more in you underground than you can see on the surface. So don't dig up and doubt what you planted in faith. Stay planted and let God bring the harvest. As always, my friends, thanks for tuning in to The Called and the Challenge. If this episode spoke to you, do me a favor, subscribe, leave a review, like, and share with your friends and your fam, because staying put doesn't make you weak, it makes you rooted. Until next time, stay grounded, stay faithful, and stay planted.